I would like to step back a little bit and address some general issues. So hopefully with this we'll complement our talks. So this is how the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley is brand new. It's only in the third year. And I arrived there less than 2 years ago. I'm established in the Brownsville campus. There is a campus in Harlingen and in Edinburgh. But I think this is the most beautiful campus of the university. So when Dr. Seshadri posed the question to me, can new genetic insights help us find better prevention and treatment for dementia? Yeah! Yes! I know, yes. I know this is the right step to do, but we have to be very careful. We have to do it right. We have to do it faster. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And particularly, my heart was born in Venezuela. And I am a Hispanic woman. I'm a Hispanic daughter. So, I have established myself working around ethnic differences. But the single subject I know more is Alzheimer's disease in Hispanics. So that's why I want to share with you, the thing that I think I know a little bit more. And I'm going to talk to you about 4 things. One is how is this complex, but the previous speaker really cleared out for me, so I'm going to go a little bit faster on this. But you can stop me anytime. And I'm going to tell you a few things about Alzheimer's in Hispanics, and I'll give you an example of why we need to be very careful when we are studying genes. And it's not only about the genes, but also the environment, the culture, the lifestyle, the connections that we have, choices that we made even early in life when we are not ready to make the choices, but we make the choices very early in life. And finally, I want to share with you my dream about Alzheimer's in South Texas. That includes, of course, a strong collaboration with Dr. Seshadri, who has been a role model for all women in the Alzheimer's field. I have to declare that I have no conflicts of interest in relationship to this presentation, that my work has been funded by the National Institute of Health, Centers for Disease Control, and the International Federation of Diabetes. And I also have to declare that the main study, my main study is the Maracaibo gene study and has received Venezuelan funding from 1997 to 2010, when most of the DNA was collected. And I serve on the board of a nonprofit called Funda Conciencia, and several foundations in Latin America, and the HCAP program for University of Gothenburg in Sweden. So for Hispanics, Alzheimer's disease, of course, is a family condition, as the whole family is affected as it progresses. Doesn't matter who is sick. Originates in the brain, but affects everybody in the family, one way or another. Diagnosis is possible once changes in the brain are detectable. These are the results of focus groups and interviews with different Alzheimer patients and caregivers and family members. So the perception is that it is possible to detect, but it's hard to distinguish from normal aging, particularly at the beginning. And so many times we don't want to see that it's there also. And it is bad, however, most of the patients and caregivers that participate in our focus group said it's better to know earlier, as changes in lifestyle can slow it down. So people want to know, what can I do about it? And the Alzheimer's disease gene discovery started, as was mentioned, in the 90s, and it's now when it's picking up. Common variants, rare variants, genes that are causal, genes that contribute just a little bit, all of these. So even this complex slide, when there is Alzheimer's and there are different areas of the brains and different cell types and different genes on the bottom, it's just simple view. Imagine how complex it is. And this is just the biology. And the biology is only a portion of the disease. We want to treat everything. We want to treat the person, the family. We want to help, not just to care about the biology, but we need to start understanding the biology so we can really do this fast and well. We don't, like somebody asked me once, what if a pill for Alzheimer's leaves the person with good memory and like a zombie? I say, I don't know. We are not trying to do that. We are trying to do, the best thing we can to prevent progression and to allow the person to be her or himself. And there is a lot of complexity that it's not only a matter of where the genes, how many genes, but the genes interact with each other. They interact with the environment, with the food that we eat, the way we live. And if we take out the ApoE4, we really, all these diseases, we only, all these genes that have been discovered at most 6 or 10% we know that explain the vulnerability. So ApoE4 keeps being one of the major or the main risk factor in general population. But what if 70 loci, 70 group of genes were discovered related to Alzheimer's? What about if 20,000 in the whole genome were discovered? We will know then what Alzheimer's disease is? We don't know. We need to do, but in like this, from Crohn's disease, which is a disease very complex in the intestine, even if we understand 20%, 20,000 of these loci, these places in the genome, we will only understand 50% of the causes of Crohn's disease. And the intestine is kind of, it's not as complex as the brain. So we really need to pump out. And there are ways to design powerful studies, as Dr. Chloe mentioned. I'm just going to skip on this. And one of the issues that we confront is how do we study this in Hispanics? And we found that Hispanics, we have large families. We know the whereabouts of everybody. We communicate. So we find Hispanic families, and like in Venezuela, I have this family, it has 2,000 people alive. And so in that family, we did 500 brain MRIs and collected the DNA and all, just in one family. And now in the valley, I'm finding families that are about 50 people, 60 people. And when I say, okay, where are the others? And say, yeah, they are here, very close to San Antonio, in Texas, or they are on North Mexico. So I say, we need to get all these people involved. We want to really do this here and involve the family. And this is just that we do all the association studies, but also we do it in families, because the families are so large that we can do this. So study designs need to be carefully tailored to increase detectance, meaning that we really want to reach out to populations that have a lot of Alzheimer's disease, a lot of risk factors, and that are heavily related to each other, so we can really pick up the genes in a more powerful way. So I'm telling you a little bit about Hispanics. So in 2000, only 5% of people over 65 were from Hispanic origin. For 2050, it's going to be 20%. And this is really incredible, really. Hispanics in the US live longer, 3 years longer than whites, males and females. And it is not because of the migrants. 2/3 of the Hispanics in this country are born here. So there is something about Hispanics everywhere that keeps the life expectancy longer. So we are focusing on this because this has consequences. We don't live longer because we just drink red wine or because we do Tai Chi in the morning, or that we don't, that we really, are very careful with our diet. Hispanics have 64% higher numbers of diabetes. And you know what? They have more, unfortunately, we as a group have more Alzheimer's disease, 1.5 more. And not only more Alzheimer's, but Alzheimer's appears 7 years earlier. And it's not because we go to the doctor to check our memory, it's not like, no. So we have a population that are an increased risk. And because they live longer, the disease takes long time, right? So accumulate. So this study, I did my PhD with Dr. Richard Mayo in New York, Columbia University, and the study takes place around the neighborhood of Washington Heights, and the density allows you to have people from Latin America, mostly from Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, but whites also and African Americans. So the same people assessing everybody underwent the same process. And in that situation, the yellow are Hispanics, and you can see how after 75, there is much more people with Alzheimer's among Hispanics. And in Latin America, if this is all the different subcontinents in the world, and these are Latin America and the Caribbean. So it is true, and our studies show in Latin America, ours actually was published in 2007, was the first to say, hey, Alzheimer's is a big problem in Latin America. No surprise, right? Violence, poor diet, alcohol, all poverty, all this stuff. So it is consistent. We have evidence from different avenues that Alzheimer's disease is a big problem for Hispanics. But when you have a lot of people with the disease, you don't know if it's because you have too many cases or it's because people are really not dying. And because Hispanics live longer, everybody keeps telling me, the family is keeping them alive. It's the family. It's not because you have more Alzheimer's. The problem is not that you have more Alzheimer's, the new cases. The problem is that you take very well care of the people with Alzheimer's. So, maybe, but no, this was not the case. We waited 15 years following our population and find out. These are people over 55. This is the study in Rochester, and this is ours in Venezuela. And Alzheimer's, people with 50 years of age have twice the risk of Alzheimer's than whites. And 55 is young. Here's to show that in this country, when these are the Hispanics, these are the whites, and these are African Americans. This is the survival after people have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So having with the diagnosis at the same time, Hispanics live. There are more people alive for longer time, even 14 years after they've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So genomics should explain. It doesn't make any sense from the social and economical point of view that Hispanics are living longer after having such a bad childhood, many of them hard work, infectious diseases, trauma, poverty, drinking, poor diet, and still they live longer. Something must be there. So we think genes are going to help us to understand this and maybe build something around what we know about Hispanics that we can provide to the other groups, right? But when we look at how many GWAS were done in 2009 and compared to 2016 that were done in people of European ancestry or whites or Caucasians, 96% in 2009, and in 2016 only 81%. So, not enough Hispanics. And if you look at, when you look at here, these are the other groups. Hispanics are less than 2% represented among genomic studies. We want to do these genomic studies here in South Texas. We have enough Hispanics, we have the technology, we have the collaborators. We can do this right here. Not in Florida, not in California, in Texas. And I'm telling you why. And the clinical presentation also, you can imagine, is a little bit different. Of course, the irritability, the aggressivity, the wandering, all depends on your type of stimulus around you, right? So in Hispanics, the clinical profile, it's a little bit different, with more apathy, and in one side, apathy and irritability than in Caucasians. This was the slide I was looking for before, where I show you, this is all the others that are not Hispanics in GWAS. Yellow are the only ones that are from Hispanics. So very underrepresented. So there is a great need to study Alzheimer's disease in Hispanics. And I'll give you an example of the case of ApoE, which is a protein, and there are only very little changes in the protein. Once the protein is working, the change in the gene is very subtle, but the protein changes dramatically in terms of the structure, of the tertiary structure and certain functions. And it has been correlated with many, many stuff. And we keep hearing, now this is the reason why ApoE4, which is one subtype, it's really causing Alzheimer's disease. But I actually had to look for this. This is that 1993, this was the very first paper, which I worked with ApoE. At the time, it was an expedite publication, but it only has like 90 people. But I genotype, I was doing my PhD, I genotype every one of these by hand. Now you do it with machines. But we have, this is not even a project now for college students. But at the time, it was, So, but Dr. Mayo had collected DNA from whites, blacks, and Hispanics. And what we detected in the very first run of this very first 90 patients versus control was that the risk of Alzheimer's for whites here was 15, was a little bit too high. And in blacks, there was not really not enough people even to do, reasonable statistics. But on Hispanics was 5. So it was almost less than half of the risk. We continue doing this. We follow. I did my PhD thesis around it, comparing ApoE4 between controls and people with Alzheimer's, and these are Hispanics, and these are Caucasians. So we found that the ApoE4 allele was really bad for whites, but was not as bad for Hispanics. Still is bad, but it's about half as bad. So don't worry if you have a Hispanic origin and you are diagnosed, or somebody tells you have an ApoE4. And even for the onset of the dementia, meaning like this is 70. If you look all these people, when we look for E4, these are African Americans, these are Hispanics, these are Caucasians. See how bad it is, the difference between the age of onset between a Caucasian having an E4. Wow, diminished a lot the survival of the individuals and diminish the age of onset. While in Hispanics, as you see here, basically the effect is after 70. So I moved, when I finished my PhD, I went back to Venezuela. Of course, I did my thesis on ApoE. I went and looked for the ApoE, and I did the same thing. And we collected at the time about 2,000 people. So we went in a neighborhood and collected everybody over 55 and studied them cognitively and obtained the DNA and processed this. And we found that even though women and men have the same proportion of this bad allele, ApoE, only women were at risk of having Alzheimer's disease. So the ApoE4 not only provided a lower risk for Hispanics, but also for men it was not. Maybe men die of other things, before. So we've been studying this in prevalence, and now we have followed the people after 20 years, and we confirm that the association of ApoE and incident Alzheimer's disease is only among women, not in men. We don't know what are we gonna find here? And then we started looking at why is this, and hypertension is a big problem everywhere, but among Latinos it's very bad. And in Venezuela, about 80% of people over 55 is hypertensive. And this was with the old guidelines. So with the new guidelines, So we found that we put monitor the blood pressure during day and night. Most of people die at night because of abnormalities in their blood pressure. So I wanted to look at that because in the day today we didn't find anything there. But when we look at night, we found that having high systolic blood pressure at night, only at night, it was the one among the people who have ApoE4 who had the worst effect. So you needed the two hits. You needed the ApoE4, well, the three, being a woman and having high blood pressure at night. So this is the complexity. Having the gene alone, even ApoE4 has a big effect. Having the gene alone, is not enough. And the family, just as everybody has a role in the family, the older daughter, the way that grandpa wants its stuff, the coffee, the machismo, the Marianismo, we do everything for our kids. We take our food, and we can be sleep deprived for, months, if we have to. So we need, and we have developed some phenotypes in which we incorporate this in the type of analysis, gene environment analysis. And finishing up, just to show you, the deepest red is the people that have Hispanics. More than 95% of the population is Hispanic in the red deep. So look at Texas. And if you look at the border, it's like over 95% of the people are Hispanics there. We believe that research should come with support to the patients. We believe that we also need to monitor people in their day-to-day environment. And we believe that activities like this empower participation and empower the family. And this is I'm a daughter of an architect. So, I dream with having an Alzheimer's center in Brownsville or in any other place, but now my dream is in Brownsville, where we can have dementia-friendly environment and where everybody will feel very welcome. I envision that it's going to have not only pharmacy, eye care, dental care, and everything, and occupational therapy, physical therapy, spaces for the community, something that people can make and sell, maybe, perhaps. And in the second, and of course, medical offices. And in the second floor, then we'll have a small lab to process the blood and all things we collect, but also to train people. And I have incorporated video conferencing system, so we can go to the colonias, to the border, or anywhere the patient is in their home with their phone, and we can help right there when the caregiver or the patient needs us. So this is the project we are working now. So populations of South Texas offer opportunities for discovering Alzheimer's. Just let's work together. This is my current team. This is Dr. Blangero and Sarah, and this is in our event, Unleashing Your Inner Frida, during the Sombrero Festival. And it's a large team of people that have collaborated with me over the years. This is my information. Feel free to email me, to contact me. I'm a big Twitter person. I have 45,000 followers. So if you have something you want to share, send it and I will retweet. And thank you very much.